Good morning, students. Yeah, students, please listen. First half an hour, I will take the class. Okay, I'll complete the chapter now. And in the second half an hour, David sir is not available today. So I have given some questions from biodiversity chapter. Okay, I have given some slides that is having questions from biodiversity. That is this chapter. What you are going to write for this week Sunday NEET exam. After my class, the host will show you the questions. Okay, he will show you all the slides. You just read the question and write the answers in your notebook and keep it with yourself. Tomorrow when I come to class, no, the first 15 minutes, I will discuss the answers and keys for the questions. Got it, students? 9 to 9:30, what you have to do? So after my class, after the completion of my class, some person will show you the slides. Okay, he will show you some 20 to 25 slides, and you just read that one by one. He will show for 2 minutes. You just mark the answers and write the keys in your notebook, and tomorrow we can discuss the answers for those questions. Okay, yes. So in this biodiversity, we discussed everything. The last final concept we are going to discuss today is the conservation of biodiversity. Yesterday itself I told you it can be classified into in situ and ex situ conservation, right? In situ is going to be online and ex situ is said to be off-site. Fine, on-site and off-site. So first let us start discussing about in situ conservation. So yesterday itself I told you what do you mean by in situ conservation, right? In situ conservation in the sense the organisms will be protected in their original natural habitat. Okay, fine. So you just write down what is meant by in situ conservation. In this type of conservation, the endangered species, the species which are under threat for extinction, they are called as endangered species. Okay, the endangered species are protected in their natural habitat. They are protected in their natural habitat with entire ecosystem. Entire ecosystem means they will not make any changes in the ecosystem or in the habitat where they are living. With a complete entire ecosystem, they will start protecting the organisms. That is, the endangered species will be start protecting, and this conservation, no, it will take place in the natural habitat with the entire ecosystem, right? So first thing, the conservationist means the persons who are going to conserve the organism on the global basis on worldwide. They have identified one spot, that is what we call it as biodiversity hotspot. This is a very, very, very important in situ conservation. Biodiversity hotspots. Have you heard about this biodiversity hotspots? Okay, so these biodiversity hotspots, no, they will have high level of species. Maximum number of plant and animal species will be present in this particular area. This is one example for this in situ conservation. High level of species, and also they will have high degree of endemism. You know what do you mean by endemic species? Have you heard about endemic species? Endemic species means those species confined to a particular geographical area. Those species you cannot see in other geographical area. Yesterday I gave you an example, right? Marsupial. Marsupial I told. They can be seen only in Australian and South American continents. You cannot see these organisms in any other place, right? So such species which are defined in a particular geographical area is called as endemic species. And when you are saying endemism, this type of species which are present, said to be present only in biodiversity hotspot and not in any other place. Okay, so those areas are designated as biodiversity hotspot. So biodiversity hotspot, it is a big geographical area which is having high level of species and also high degree of endemism. This is one example. If you want, you can write the definition for this endemic species. Sometimes they will ask you question. You can write this definition. What is meant by endemic species? These species are the ones which are confined to a particular region. They are confined to a particular region, and they are not found anywhere else. And they are not found anywhere else apart from this geographical area. They cannot be found anywhere else. So this is what called as endemic species. If endemic species are more, then you can say high degree of endemism is present in that area, which we call it as biodiversity hotspot. So this biodiversity hotspot is the first example for this in situ conservation. Okay, right. Now, what is the total number of biodiversity hotspot available all over the world? So hotspots, no, these biodiversity hotspots are also said to be, the hotspots are also the regions of, they are also the regions of accelerated habitat loss. You know what do you mean by habitat loss? If we are doing destruction of forest or burning forest, okay, so all these like things are deforestation, what we are doing, it will cause us habitat loss of many organisms. And if it is because of human activities, then it is called as accelerated habitat loss. And hotspots, mainly in biodiversity hotspots, there are like large number of accelerated habitat loss taking place, and because of that organisms are becoming extinct. Okay, so the number of hotspots, total number of hotspots available in the world. So this count, as I said, now this count is actually, it has been increased, but according to the NCERT book, the total number of hotspots in worldwide, the number given is number 34. The total number of hotspots worldwide is 34, but now actually the number has been increased. So these hotspots, no, they will cover only 1 to 2% of the Earth's land area. But according to the estimation, the strict protection in them can reduce the mass extinction by almost 30%. You just note down these percentage also. The hotspots cover only 1 to 2% of Earth's land area. Entire land area, the hotspot covers only 1 to 2%. Okay, but the strict protection or conservation in them, strict protection or conservation in hotspots, no, can reduce the ongoing mass extinction. Now we are in the 6th episode of mass extinction, right? This ongoing mass extinction is reduced, can be reduced, okay? Can be reduced by almost 30%. 30% of the extinction of species can be reduced if we are protecting the hotspot region. Hotspots cover only 1 to 2% of the entire Earth surface, but the species that can be protected from extinction is said to be almost 30%. Okay, and what about the number of hotspots in India? I told you the total number of hotspots in worldwide is 34. In India, the number of biodiversity hotspots, according to your NCERT, is said to be 3 biodiversity hotspots. And what are, this is a very, very important question, the number of biodiversity hotspot in India, and what are those 3 hot diversity regions, rich biodiversity regions in India? They are called as the hotspots of India, and they are Western Ghats. The first biodiversity hotspot is Western Ghats. You know Western Ghats, right? And then Himalayas. And the third one is Indo-Burma. I will write here, Indo-Burma. Now in India also many hotspots have been added. Like I know, like you know Sundarbans, right? Sundarbans, and then some Sri Lankan, near to the Sri Lankan region, that is in the coastal region, there one hotspot has been found. But according to the NCERT data, 3 biodiversity hotspots are there in India, and they are, one is Western Ghats, second one is Himalayas, and third one is Indo-Burma region. Okay, fine. Now, what are the other in situ conservation? So one example what I gave you for in situ conservation is biodiversity hotspot. The in situ conservation, other in situ conservation in India. This is not only in India, this will be found in, everywhere in the world, but I just want to give you the count of other biodiversity, that is in situ conservation in India. Okay, so one is biosphere reserves. This will be, biosphere reserves also present all over the world. But the count I'll be giving only for India. Biosphere reserves in India is about 15. Okay, and then national parks also comes under in situ conservation. National parks. This national parks is about 90 in India. Okay, and then sanctuaries, wildlife sanctuaries, you know, right? These wildlife sanctuaries are about more than 450 in India. And then sacred groves. Sacred groves or tracts of the forest. The sacred groves we cannot say in count, you just write sacred groves or tracts of the forest. Okay, so there are many, several countless sacred groves or tracts of the forest are available. Okay, so coming to this biosphere reserves, see the number of biosphere reserves in India is about 15, but when you go for worldwide, it will be more. So the biosphere reserves, no, they represent the natural biome. There you will have some unique biological community. I'll tell you each one of them. Biosphere reserves, no, it is a natural biome and it will have some unique biological community. And this biosphere reserve include, I will tell you about biosphere reserves, because you may get questions about this biosphere reserve and biodiversity hotspots. Okay, so biosphere reserves, they have some unique biological community, which means the organisms present in this biosphere reserves are like they have, that is unique in the sense different types of biological community will be present in this biosphere reserve. And these biosphere reserves were created under an organization that is called as MAB. This organization is responsible for maintaining this biosphere reserve. And what is this MAB is? Man and Biosphere Program. Man and Biosphere Program. So this program, Man and Biosphere Program, was like organized by the organization called as UNESCO. Okay, UNESCO is responsible for maintaining this. Fine. And in this biosphere reserve, you can see 3 different zones. Okay, I'll tell you what are the zones. You just write, you just draw this diagram. It will be easy for you to understand. The first innermost zone, the second zone, and the third zone. Okay, the first innermost zone, no, that is called as the core zone. So this zone is completely protected, legally protected and completely undisturbed. Okay, it is completely protected zone and no human interference will be there in the core zone. It is a completely protected zone, no human interference. Okay, and second zone, no, this is called as the buffer zone. And this buffer zone is, there will be limited human activity. Limited human activity will be there. So this limited type of human activity, no, only for research and education purpose, not for any other purpose. This buffer zone is like only for limited human activity. In core zone, no human activities at all. No human activity will be allowed. It is a completely protected region. And the second zone, buffer zone, limited human activity will be there and there research and education can be performed. And the last outermost zone, no, this is called as the transition zone. And in this transition zone, this is the outermost zone. Here, complete human activities are performed. Complete human activities will be there. Complete human activities will be performed. So complete human activities means here agriculture, cultivation, domestication, harvesting of natural product, forestry, settlement, recreation, everything will be performed in this transition zone. This is the outermost zone. So coming from inner to outer, you can divide the biosphere reserve into 3 zones. Core zone, this is the first zone. Second one is buffer zone and third one is transition zone. In core zone, there will be no human activities at all. It is a completely protected region. In buffer zone, you will have limited human activity. And in the transition zone, complete human activities will be there, where agriculture, settlement, forestry, recreation, everything will be present. So in the buffer zone, limited human activity means it will be used only for education purpose and for research purpose. Okay. So this is about biosphere reserves. So in India, you know, the first biosphere reserve was declared. Which particular region is deserved as the first biosphere reserve? The first biosphere reserve declared in India, the first biosphere reserve declared in India is Nilgiris, that is Ooty. Okay, Ooty is the first biosphere reserve which has been declared, and it has been declared in the year 1986. 1986. Okay, that's all about biosphere reserves. See, research in the sense, some medicinal plant research for analysis, people will go for analysis. That is for take considering this, the red for publishing in the red data book list, IUCN. Those organizations will analyze the region. Activity will not be there. I told no human activity. Human activity means we cannot perform any sort of agriculture or domestication, anything grazing. Nothing will be allowed in this particular region. Okay. In core zone, species and all will be there. Biodiversity, species. What I said is, in core zone, only activity will not be there. I didn't say like species will not be present. Species will be present. That's why it is under complete protection. To protect the species only, we are having this core zone, not to have any human activities, right? Number of these biosphere reserves, national park sanctuaries, you just read what is there in your NCERT. You follow the NCERT count, okay? Because that will be given the answer. Exactly, I don't know what exactly the just now coming to national parks. So national park, I told you, right? National parks, I told you 90 national parks are there in India. So this is mainly, national parks are mainly for the betterment of, to conserve the betterment of wildlife. Wildlife, both wildlife in the sense it includes both flora and also fauna, both plants and also animals. Okay. So in national parks, private ownership will not be allowed. It will be always run by the government. So here also in national park, grazing, cultivation, forestry, nothing is permitted. And the first national park of the world, first national park of the world, the first national park of the world is Yellowstone. Yellowstone, which is in USA. This is the first national park of the world. Okay, it was founded in the year 1872. 1872, right? So similarly, we have so many national parks in India. Some of the important national parks I will tell you. You just note down those things because you may get questions only from these things. Okay, that is Kaziranga National Park is a very, very important one in India. Kaziranga National Park, which is located in Assam. You cannot study all the 90 national parks, right? Some important national park I will tell you. And then Gir National Park in Gujarat. Then Bandipur National Park in Karnataka. Bandipur National Park in Karnataka. Then so in the, yeah, these are the important national parks. These important national parks, no, that is mainly they are See, Assam, Kaziranga National Park in Assam, okay, and then Gir is not for tiger, but Bandipur National. This Assam and Karnataka National Park, no, these two national parks are mainly, they are running the tiger project. For conserving the tiger, they are having this tiger project, okay. Many other national parks are there for this tiger project, but the important things are Kaziranga National Park and Bandipur National Park. Yes. So next one, what I told you is sanctuaries. Sanctuaries, I told you many sanctuaries, that is more than 450 sanctuaries are present. And sanctuaries, the protection is only for fauna, not for flora. That is only for animals and not for plants. Okay. So here also the activities like harvesting of timber, collection of forest products, and primate ownership, or here in sanctuaries they are permitted, but it should not interfere with the well-being of animals. In sanctuaries, some human activities will be permitted, but it should not affect the activity of the animals. And many important national parks are there. That is sanctuaries, wildlife sanctuaries are there. That is one is the Bharatpur Bird Sanctuary in Rajasthan. We studied recently Bharatpur Bird Sanctuary, Bharatpur Bird Sanctuary, which is in Rajasthan. I told you, the Siberian cranes, they will migrate here. In Rajasthan, this is one important sanctuary present in India. And maximum sanctuaries in India belongs to Andaman and Nicobar, okay? And with the assistance, the Project Tiger, I told you, Tiger Project, it will come under sanctuaries also. It was launched in India. Tiger Project was launched in India in the year 1973 with the assistance of an organization called as WWF. So that is World Wildlife Fund. With the help of this World Wildlife Fund, they started this, Tiger Project in India in the year 1973. Okay. So with this WWF, our Indian organization will also accompany them. That is IBWL. What is IBWL is Indian Board of Wildlife. Indian Board of Wildlife. They also help in protecting the organisms. So based on all these things, we have one act called as Wildlife Protection Act. So there is one act for conserving the wildlife organisms, which is called as Wildlife Protection Act. This act is amended in the year 1972. It was amended in the year 1991. It was created in the year 1972, but it was brought to the amended in the year 1991. Okay, that's all. You know what is the symbol of WWF? Anybody know what is the symbol of WWF? One animal symbol will be there. Very good. Giant panda. Giant panda symbol will be there in the WWF. It's very good. And one more thing we want to discuss. Sacred groves, right? Any idea about sacred groves? Sacred groves, actually these sacred groves are some regions which are said to be like worshipped areas. These natural environment, they are said to be worshipped areas, like under spiritual things. These regions, particular regions, they will be like considered to be some natural god. Okay, worshipped areas are called as sacred groves. Many sacred groves are there in India. Like I will tell you some of the sacred groves in India. Kasi. We are going to Kasi Rameshwaram, which is worshipped as a god, right? So that particular area is also a sacred grove. Kasi and Jaintia Hills. Kasi and Jaintia Hills. Kasi Hills and Jaintia Hills, which is in Meghalaya. And then Aravalli Hills. Aravalli Hills is there. which is in Rajasthan. This is also one sacred grove. Western Ghats is also a sacred grove. Western Ghats of Karnataka and Maharashtra. Yeah, so these are some examples for your sacred groves. That's all about in situ conservation. In situ conservation is over, students. I'll show you the slides now. Last 2 more minutes. Okay. Only thing is leftover thing is ex situ conservation. Tomorrow it will take just 5 minutes. Ex situ conservation we will now discuss in detail. I'll tell you just what are the ex situ conservation. I think last 2 more minutes. So I will just show you all the slides. You just copy. Tomorrow we can discuss the ex situ conservation. Now 99% of the chapter is over. Okay, only 1% that is ex situ conservation is left. So tomorrow we'll discuss about this. I'll just show you the slides. You just copy the slides. This conservation part is very, very important, students, because in your NEET exams, always they will ask you one question from this in situ conservation and ex situ conservation. From biodiversity chapter, mostly the question will be NEET exam. For NEET exam, the question will be from this conservation part. They will give you some 4 options and they will ask you to choose which is in situ conservation and which is ex situ conservation. So please do remember, if they are asking in situ conservation, the options will be biodiversity hotspot, biosphere reserve, wildlife sanctuaries, national parks, right, and sacred groves. Third one. First one is biodiversity hotspot. Remaining in situ conservation are biosphere reserve, national park, sanctuaries, sacred groves. We discussed about all these 5 things. Okay. Fourth one. Fifth one. Sixth one. And the last, 7th one. Okay, students, you just get ready for the, see, I told you, like last week, I'll do discussion for biodiversity. Okay. So today you are going to write only the answers for the questions, and tomorrow I will discuss all the keys. Okay. Keys with explanation and solution. Tomorrow I will discuss. Fine. So yeah, somebody want to ask, show me the second one. This is the second slide, ma. Please note down. Sixth also, wait. Finish writing second one. And this is sixth one. Okay, students, please don't may waste the time. Okay, next half an hour, I want all of you to write the answers in your notebook. Please make use of the time. Don't think it is like simply you are wasting the time. Yeah, thank you. So see you tomorrow. Tomorrow I will discuss the keys and I will complete this ex situ conservation. Fine. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think you are. And the next. Yeah, second one, which one of the following is an example of executive conservation? A. Wildlife sanctuary, and option B. Seed bank, option C. Sagat groves, and option D. National park. And once again, I am just repeating the question. Which one of the following is an example of executive conservation? Option A. Wildlife sanctuary, option B. Seed bank, option C. Sacred groves, and option D. National park. Yeah, I think you had noted down those questions. Yeah, I am just showing down the third question mark. Third question, biodiversity of a geographical region represents. Biodiversity of a geographical region represents option A, endangered species found in the region, endangered species found in the region, option A, and option B, the diversity in the organisms living in the region. Then option C, genetic diversity in the dominant species of the region. And option D, species endemic to the region. Okay. Repeating the questions once again, biodiversity of a geographical region represents option A, endangered species found in the region, option B, the diversity in the organism living in the region, and option C, genetic diversity in the dominant species of the region, and option D, species endemic to the region. Okay. And the fourth question, large woody vines are more commonly found in. Question is that large woody vines are more commonly found in option A, mangroves, option B, tropical rainforest, option C, alpine forest, and option D, temperate forest. And repeating the question, large woody vines are more commonly found in option A, mangroves, option B, tropical rainforest, option C, alpine forest, and option D, temperate forest. And fifth question, which one of the following shows maximum genetic diversity in India? The question is that I am repeating once again. Which one of the following shows maximum genetic diversity in India? Option A, rice, option B, maize, and option C, mango, and option D, groundnut. Repeating the question once again, ma. Which one of the following shows maximum genetic diversity in India? Option A, rice, option B, maize, and option C, mango, option D, groundnut. Next one. Which one of the following have the highest number of species in nature? Um, just repeating the questions once again. Which one of the following have the highest number of species in nature? Option A, insects. Option B, birds. Option C, angiosperms. And option D, fungi. Repeating the question once again. Which one of the following have the highest number of species in nature? Option A, insects. Option B, birds. Option C, angiosperms. And option D, fungi. And next question. Which one of the following areas in India is a hotspot of biodiversity? Option A, Eastern Ghats. Option B, Gangetic Plain. Option C, Sundarbans. And option D, Western Ghats. Repeating the question once again. Which one of the following areas in India is a hotspot of biodiversity? Option A, Eastern Ghats. Option B, Gangetic Plains. Option C, Sundarbans. And option D, Western Ghats. And next question. Which of the following is not used for executive plant conservation? Okay. Which one of the following is not used for executive plant conservation? Option A, field gene banks. Option B, seed banks. Option C, shifting cultivation. Option D, botanical garden. I am repeating the questions once again. Which of the following is not used for executive plant conservation? Option A, field gene banks. Option B, seed banks. Option C, shifting cultivation. Option D, botanical gardens. And next question, ma'am. Which one of the following represent maximum number of species among global biodiversity? Option A, algae. Option B, lichens. Option C, fungi. And option D, mosses and ferns. Repeating the question once again. Which of the following represent maximum number of species among global biodiversity? Option A, algae. Option B, lichens. Option C, fungi. And option D, mosses and ferns. And the next question, the organization which publishes the red list of species is. The organization which publishes the red list of species is option A, ICFRE, option B, IUCN, and option C, UNEP, and option D, WWF. I am repeating the question once again. The organization which publishes the red list of species is option A, ICFRE, option B, IUCN, option C, UNEP, and option D, WWF. My students, um, can you just post the abbreviations of these options in chat box? I think you can just write your answer in chat box. I need the abbreviations of these options, like what is ICFRE and what is IUCN and what is UNEP. Just expand it, okay? What is UNEP and what is WWF? I am finding that. This eighth question, WWF is World Wildlife Fund. Getting voice is not clear. Okay. Yeah, World Wildlife Fund is okay. Indian Council of Forestry and Research Education. Okay. IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources. And someone who is that International Union of Zoological Nomenclature? No, it's not that. Mm, okay, ma'am. Yeah. WED. Okay, students, you can have some break. I think so. I think it's nearly 9:30, so you can have some break and you can join the next class by 9:45. Yeah. And your next class will be by okay, ma'am. Yeah. I'm just leaving the meeting.